It's the When Fishing Podcast. Applying techniques.
Then I put the C rigs on the A rigs.
Bringing fresh ideas.
They can't all be good ones.
Talking stories. Reports.
About 5 knots out of the wind.
Conservation.
You're probably too close.
All to make you and I better fishermen. Hello. We got a couple reports for you. The first one's a deep drop. My first successful set of deep drops. Been doing a number of attempts over the past couple of years on coastal shelves around like canyons and stuff, trying to find some coastal deep drop worthy deep drops. Looking for sablefish, blackgill rockfish, among other things. Pacific hake, which would be garbage for table fare. Most of them are dinks, but still looking for these species, you know. So I've had a couple of failed attempts this year, but finally decided, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to the 14-mile bank on a good day. I've been there. I went there once this year, and it was too windy by the time I got there, so it wasn't worth, you know, dropping 24 ounces into 1,000 feet of water when I'd probably be my line would be horizontal by the time it got to the bottom with those kinds of conditions. But I finally found a day that it was not like that. It was glass. It was glass all day. So I went out there, 600 launch. 25-mile ride to the 14-mile bank. Lots of podcasts to listen to in that amount of time. So we got there, and there's a moderate current, but I was able to keep my 24-ounce weight pretty much directly below me. And I did well. I only had one drop where I didn't bring up a fish, which is really nice when you're reeling up 1,000 feet. You hope to God that there's something on the end of it. And you could tell, even with braided line, I was using 60-pound braided line and a 60-pound leader. And that stayed plenty sensitive down to 900, 800, 900, 1,000 feet. Those were my approximate drops. First drops in 800 feet landed me sword spine rockfish and pink rockfish, both new species for me. But I was looking for Mexican rockfish and blackgills and maybe a sable, but I knew that the sables are, generally over kind of mud bottom, so they're kind of a crapshoot to find. So moved over a little bit from 800 to 900 feet of water. What did I find? I found Mexican rockfish. Mission accomplished. And then over to chameleon rockfish, which is kind of cool. It looks almost like an albino rockfish, just so light pink. And yeah, so I got those. That was super cool. Moved over to I think I was in 950 to 1,000. Finally got my blackgill rockfish. Double mission accomplished. It was real average size fish for them. I've been seeing a lot of 2 to 4 or 5 pounders of blackgills. So I was hoping that I'd be able to find some of those, but I only found one blackgill for the day, and it was about 14 inches. So regardless, I got it. And I tried it for sushi. I saw this video online on the YouTubes, and some fresh fish seller in San Pedro or something was talking it up and saying how it's good raw, and I had never had raw rockfish before. Raw rockfish, but it was not that good for sushi. It looked good. It looked very pristine. It was a little bit on the chewy side. Very not just firm. I mean tuna is firm, so this was on the chewy side, and I didn't really care for it. So I'm gonna try and figure out what I got to do with that to make that the way I want it. But yeah, I ended up with the majority of my fish were Mexican rockfish, including like a 6-pounder. So that was a nice. That's the biggest rockfish I've ever caught by a landslide. That was cool to see. I think I'm gonna have one side of that for lunch today, and yeah. So I got my limit of rockfish from the deep, deep, and then when I left, it was still like glass calm, no wind yet, and it was a 3-hour ride back to the harbor. So by the time I got back on the flats, it was starting. The wind was starting to pick up a little bit. Then I picked up a bunch of balloons, and it was yeah, a bunch of metallic balloons out there. You gotta pick those up. And it was the day after my birthday, so so it was a good little birthday present to catch. It was five new species for me. That's hard to do. Hard to do in your local zone, I think. I would think I'd have to like travel outside of the state or outside of the country to get that kind of prolific species hunting success. So yeah, that was one trip. That was good. And then on the way, back on the way, back to the flats, or on the flats. After I collected the balloons, there was a bunch of bait getting run around by dolphins and birds and stuff. So I ran a high-speed troller through that stuff. I don't have a lot of hope for that, but at the same time, I kind of wonder, like, if those Yozuri Bonitas, the Mad Max, I think the smaller ones on the flats, you could potentially, in my head anyways, it seems like something that you could potentially like hook a thresher with, or you could, smaller ones, I would think like bonito or barracuda would go for it. And so why not put it out while you're traveling if you're only going 10 knots like I am. So, yeah, so that was that trip. It was good. So much meat. I really want to get back out and deep drop again to see what other new species I can find, but I am so loaded up on rockfish meat right now that I'd feel like an asshole to catch more. So, yeah. So then I've tried 2 times in the last week to locate threshers. I got the reports that there's local threshers around. They are very active. And so I went south out of the harbor the first day. It was like 1/4-mile visibility with the fog. And so I was just looking around, and in my nearest sites for puddling bait fish, got some fresh mackerel in the boat real quick. I don't have a live bait tank, so I just throw them in a bag and, do what I can with them dead. If I can later on in the day, so then I kept moving down the coast. There's a spot that I like that pretty much always has a lot of bait, but I couldn't really find it this time. And then the terns looked like they wanted to find it there as well. There was like a dozen terns flying around, and I'm like, all right, the bait's here, right? And then they just kept leaving. I was like, okay, like, why are you even here to begin with? I don't know. So I started following them offshore into the vacuum of space. When it's just like when you have 1/4-mile visibility, it's like, where are you even going? I don't know. But it's kind of fun sometimes when it's like that. And it was this time. And then they found some dolphins, and I started hitchhiking with the dolphins. The dolphins pulled up on a couple like little flurries of bait, and so I was like fishing those for a second, but they were only on them for a couple minutes. So then I kept following them. The next thing I know, I'm like 5 miles offshore. And then they find a huge mass of bait, 30, 40 yard wide sardine schools in 100 foot of water. So I started working that because they kept working it. I kept working it. And I couldn't help but think, well, if there's going to be as many threshers as I've heard around here, there's got to be one on a big, massive bait like this. So like I started catching a bunch of sardines off of this and throwing them in bags, and then catching fresh mackerel and putting those down live, and then letting them die and using them dead and dying and live, and every combination of possibilities I was exhausting in order to find these fabled threshers, and I couldn't find them. So I spent like an hour and a half on that school, and then they were not having it. There weren't nothing on that. So then I kept moving and just started making my way back north towards the harbor, and I just kept finding like pretty big bait schools, doing the same thing, just circling them or like getting out in front of them and drifting through them with the bait on the outside of the school or underneath the school, and couldn't get jack shit. And then next thing I know, I'm over the top of Isers, and so drop down a fluke over Isers, catch a sheephead. So it's like, okay, skunk off on relative game fish, I guess, and then try to send it back down, and it swims down, floats back up, and sheephead have no good grip points, and it was like 14 inches or so it didn't have much weight to it. So I wanted to try and release it, so I tried popping it and then sending it back after like 5 minutes of trying to get it into the boat because it's a slippery motherfucker with big teeth, so you can't lip it, and then the gills are kind of weird, and they're kind of wide-bodied, so yeah, I didn't have a net. Net would have been killer. And so I get it in the boat, try to pop it, and it doesn't go back down. And so I'm like, all right, now I got to keep it. So then I struggled to get it in the boat some more. So I spent like 10 minutes trying to get it in the boat in total. Finally got it in the boat. And I'm like, okay, you're dead. You're mine. And so then I went home. And then my last trip, which was yesterday, I went out in a different direction, and I was told by multiple sources, you got to go over here. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that to myself, where I was, but it seems like everybody knows. Anyways, so I went over that way with my bag of bait and set up shop. 6:40 a.m. peak low tide. I like a slack tide for pelagic type stuff. So I arrived on the scene right about then, and then put a dead mackerel on a float out there, like kind of butterfly at the back end, and started chopping up sardines and putting a chunk in the water like every 10 yards or so for a couple hours. Put out a second rod eventually. The only thing I ever saw in the spread or in the chum line was some smelt. I was hoping to like maybe see some mackerel, but all I saw were smelt. So seemed kind of dead. Never saw any like tail and threshers or nothing. So yeah, after a couple hours, I gave it up. Seemed like the peak tidal hour was past. So I went on my merry way to try and get my skunk off. So I rock hopped for about a dozen fish, one red and some relatively even mix of calicos and sand bass. And that was all she wrote for that. Nice weather for those days. But I'm being driven crazy with the thresher hunting because I know they're there, but I can't find them. So, and then meanwhile, my pal Chris, shout out, last night he was able to put a thresher in the boat, and then as I'm recording this right now, he just put up on Instagram that he's fighting another thresher. So he's found him down in his neck of the woods. So good to know they're definitely around. But he's making it look way too easy. So I don't know what I got to do. I feel like I've got all my on paper shit, and I'm just either getting really, really unlucky, or I shouldn't actually be spraying my bait with sunscreen. So I'll figure something out. But in the meantime, I want to take like a several days break from trying to chase them so that I don't drive myself nuts. Like Like going for I've realized that going for pelagic fish is a lot like my interest in like UFOs. Like I can't let myself go down the rabbit hole for too long. Otherwise I feel sick. So, I gotta balance myself out somehow. So maybe I'll go fish for Corbina and I'll actually do that. I haven't done that yet. So I need to actually do that. So those are reports. So something that's really been really super interesting to me for a while, but it's been reaffirmed in the past couple weeks is uh, how often fish will show up in certain areas around the world. Really, they'll show up in similar areas, like on similar days in the calendar year from the previous one. Like, um, so some big bluefin were out of, you know, sort of coastal in the last couple weeks. I don't think they're there anymore. But in the previous few years, in like the last week of June, um, bluefin kind of show up coastal if you can find them. And I couldn't find them this year, but I know somebody who could find them. So that was really interesting. How it really was within like a week. It's like, they could show up like a month later or like something like that. It wasn't even like similar water temperature, I don't think, but they still showed up at the same time. And then another thing, another thing to reaffirm, that is the Dorado are apparently in U.S. waters. If you look around for them, if you want to go snorkeling some patties, you might find a couple. They're in the U.S. waters apparently. So and then that happened in the first week of July last year. You probably um, didn't know or care at that point in the first week of July, but people were starting to see them through July, and then they really started to bite. The bite really turned on, I think, at the end of July. I want to say maybe beginning of August. I was working over at Dana Wharf in like August, September, October, and then the bite pretty much shut off. I think at the beginning of November, I want to say, yeah, and so they showed up at the same time this year. So prepare your assholes for that for another semester of Dorado pain and suffering. I'm tired of those things. They used to be my favorite fish. They used to be like, wow, look at that. It's like that's a ridiculous looking fish. It's yellow and blue and it's pretty and it's got these beautiful speckles and they change color and they're fast and they jump and they taste good. What more could you want? Well, I would want my favorite fish to be less of a whore. Those things are just like they just throw themselves at you. I mean, like more so in tropical waters. They're a little bit more difficult up here. Like you kind of had to have live bait, and I saw some people catch them with like flies, and then I got one on a skirted troller. And so this year, I really once I started working at Dana Wharf, I kind of got sick of looking at them, so I didn't even go for them in my own boat when I probably could have. But um, this year, if they're gonna show up like that, then I'm gonna start throwing flies around and maybe trolling daisy chains and some smaller trolling lures. See if I can. I was able to bring home fish that people either didn't want or forgot on board, and so I was eating mahi through the summer and fall without even having to catch more than the one single one I caught. So this year I might have to provide my own. So we'll see. But I would be way more interested if yellowfin tuna showed up, and they are showing up. They're showing up in the counts. Down on the U.S. Mexico border, there's some like I guess outside of Coronado, And then I've been alerted that, and it is what happened last year. I remember being told that yellowfin tuna showed up in U.S. waters, and like within the week, they got wrapped up by commercial fishermen, and were never seen or heard from again. So, same thing happened, I guess, in the last week or something like that. The school showed up and they got wrapped, and I would love to get into those on a more regular basis from my own boat. That would be really cool. The bluefin are every time I've eaten bluefin, they're not that great eating. I mean, they're good. They're not bad, but they're not like amazing. I really think that yellowfin tuna are like consistently good, consistently very good to great. And bluefin, I've only had it a couple times, and every time it's been like a little bit fishy, blah blah blah. And people don't want to eat a mackerel. Well, I'll tell you what, bluefin tastes kind of like mackerel. I do like mackerel. I didn't say I don't like bluefin, but I'd rather have yellowfin. That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry. So, yeah. So I don't know what the hell. I guess the only way the yellowfin can enter the U.S. waters is if they're kind of mixed in with other fish. Like it seems that this year so far, in the past couple weeks, that the yellowfin have been showing up, that people are getting them. If they're getting them in U.S. waters, they're getting them alongside bluefin. So I believe the bluefin tuna have a quota that may or may not have been reached. Normally gets reached early in the year, but the yellowfin, when they mix in with other fish, I don't think they can get wrapped like they would if they were like all yellowfin. So, yeah, I just want to get a yellowfin. It's been a minute, been a couple of years, and I'd like to get a bigger one, bigger one. Well, I figure I ought to just review how to catch threshers. Not that I obviously know how to get them, but I'm well read on the topic, so might as well just run it through, put it out over here, and you know, help people understand what it even is, if you don't even know. So there's two. As far as I know, there's two distinct locations to catch threshers. It's shallow water and deep water fish. And then the shallow water fish will be more spawning, or they might be the pups, or it might be whatever like that. And then the deep water is where you'll get bigger ones, as far as I understand. So there's two ways to go about getting them. Either way, I suppose, or in either location. The first one is trolling, and the second one's drifting. So trolling, you're gonna roll your Rapala Magnums or your Bait-O-Matics. Bait-O-Matics are like they've got a keel weight. They're like a skirted trolling lure with a keel weight in front. People will use them for. There's three sizes. There's a 16 ounce, a 9 ounce, and like a 3 ounce. And you can slow troll them. You put either a fillet or a whole fish on the back end of it, and slow troll it. I've heard that you can also use it for wahoo. I suppose trolling faster in that regard. Perhaps makos in that regard, but I digress. So the idea right now, in like the spring summer thing in SoCal, is to catch them shallow water. So that would involve. It seems like you can use the trolling lures, or you could also troll live or dead bait. I suppose if you can get a mackerel to swim or whatever to swim, then more power to you. But in shallow water, yeah, you could either troll them, but it seems more popular to drift live or dead bait, and you could either do that fly lined or you could do it under a float. I just watched a couple of YouTube videos the other day, seeing how people set up their float, and they would basically use one of those. It's like one of those like bell or slider style foam buoys, like a small one. And they'd put a rubber band around, like a large rubber band around it, and then you just put a loop of your line into that to like secure it anywhere along your up your leader. So put it like 10 to 20 feet up or something like that, 5 to 20 feet up, depending on how freaky you're feeling. So what I've done more than a couple times, and it doesn't seem to work, is I go out and I just start looking for bait. I just look for, bait, birds, and dolphins. And once I find like a large collection of sardines or anchovies somewhere, I've been told like you are too far out if you're more than like half a mile out from the beach, and I kind of find that hard to believe. And I know that like people will catch them as like bycatch while like bass fishing and shit like that. So it's maybe that's just more on the bottom and they're just doing their own thing instead of chasing bait around. But one might say that me being 5 miles out in 100 feet of water, chasing around big ass schools of sardines, is just the wrong way to go. And I keep thinking like, well, if there's no bait on the beach, then why the fuck would I be on the beach? There's not going to be any threshers there if there's no bait over there. So where's the bait? Well, it's farther offshore. So are the threshers having a day at the goddamn beach? Are they getting their tan on, or are they out there chasing bait wherever the bait may be? That's what I'm trying to say. But at the end of the day, I haven't caught any threshers, so they're probably right, I guess. So yeah, so I don't know if I just got to be more patient and do just longer drifts along the beach or something like that. Or, I don't know, man. I'm fucking frustrated. I got a migraine from all this shit. So, yeah, I got, if you look up, thresher shark fishing in Southern California, you'll see what I see. There's some shit where people are in Long Beach and they're not really exactly close to the beach. So that's kind of another thing that reaffirms like, okay, well, if they're not next to the beach, then where are they? They're over on like the break wall. Okay, great. Like that's not the beach. But where I was yesterday, I went fishing by the break wall. I didn't see any bait. I saw smelt. I didn't see no goddamn max in my chum slick. I also didn't. My fish finder is dead. I don't know what the hell happened. I think I got to rewire something. I just saw that as I went to recharge it. I've got like, what do you call it? Like there's the wire crimps. I feel like it might have folded one too many times in one spot. Anyways, so yeah. So I've tried near shore, I've tried offshore in still shallow water, I've tried by the break wall. It don't matter if there's bait or there isn't bait. It doesn't matter if there's a peak tide or a middle of the movement of the tide, or if I'm drifting or trolling. It doesn't fucking matter. They're not gonna bite. So should I give up? Yes, but will I? No. So I'm just gonna keep fucking trying. Okay, you can't stop me. You can't stop me. So we'll see what happens. But if I'm a blind squirrel and I gotta find a nut, but I could also die from being blind. I think that's how most blind squirrels would conclude their existence. What's the game plan? Well, I already recorded what the game plan was yesterday, but then some shit happened. A couple different shits happened, and now we got new game plans for the week. I don't wanna look like I'm slumming over here. I'm slipping. Don't catch me slipping. No fucking way. No way. But yeah. So I'll let you know what I just did today in next week's report. But what I ought to let you know in this game plan is that some coastal tuna showed up. Hint, hint. That's got something to do with what I did today. But yeah. So particularly south of Newport Beach, there's a decent amount of little wolf packs. I think are kind of moving around. Looks like they're small to medium fish. But they're there. Go play hide and seek. Have fun. The other thing that I wanted to really update this on was that the barracuda really just showed up over on out of San Pedro. The Victory out of Long Beach Sport Fishing has been killing it on the barracuda game. So in some people's eyes, that's the start of the season, and there's good reason to feel that way because that's some good inshore surface action, and it looks like there's some real logs. So perhaps I'll go for that if I'm not going to go for tunas or threshers, which I will do both of. I don't know how I need 8 days a week here. I need an eighth day, but yeah. So barracuda showing up, tuna showing up. How fun! Que chévere. So forecast looks really good at the end of the week as the new moon comes. The half moon tide cycle we got going right now is still pretty strong. Nice big tidal changes. I should really Google what the hell the deal is on why sometimes a half moon tide cycle is like really mild and other times it's big like this. Like this looks like a fucking full moon cycle right now. I actually thought it was a new moon right now, judging by like the tide, but it turns out it's next weekend. So what the fuck? You know? So yeah, surface action. It's getting hot. Bass, they've been biting. If you don't think they've been biting, I don't know what you're doing. But they've been biting. Rockfish, they've been there. They'll be there. Don't worry about it. Go get that surface action. Go kill that cuda, buddy. Yeah, so good luck playing hide and seek with the bluefin. Bluefin will be bluefin, so just remember that. But good luck if you do that. And yeah, I'm probably going to fish the second half of the week. There's a lot better tides for like the thresher bullshit. Some sort of early to mid-morning high tides that I want to capitalize on, knowing what I know now, and continue to hit my head against the wall, the break wall. You'll see me over there hitting my head against it. That's not what you do. That's not what you should do. You should fish for threshers, not hit your head against the rocks. That's dangerous. But that's how it be. So whatever you do, have fun, and good luck out there, and be safe.